prototype challenge cars will be joined by these lights cars. Kind of an unusual arrangement here at VIR this weekend. Normally, all 4 classes of the Tudor Championship run simultaneously, the 2 prototypes classes and the 2 GT classes. But this weekend, the big prototypes are missing in action. They're not involved in this weekend. So rather than have just the prototype lights as well as, or the prototype challenge cars, excuse me, as well as the 2 GT classes on the track at the same time, the election was made to run the prototype classes as 2 sprint races. So we'll have 2 45-minute sprint races, one today, another tomorrow, for the prototype lights as well as the prototype challenge cars, and the combination of their finishing order from those 2 events will be summed together by some magic formula that only the folks to the left of the year timing and scoring know about, and that will determine the points haul for the prototype challenge drivers as they make their way on to the next round. But at the moment, at least, we are turning our attention to the prototype lights as this 16 or 17 car field, depending on if the last cars show up, will be taking the cars across the stripe here, and it looks like our lead car, which I believe is Goikhberg, is the first to exit the hog pen turn and come on to the front straightaway. As he crosses the stripe, we'll see the times flash up on the timing and scoring monitor. It is Goikhberg first across, but he is not the fastest. Matt McMurray in the number 20 car sets the standard on the first flying lap. Andrew Novich comes by in second spot. Novich third in the points coming into this round. Mikhail Goikhberg currently is third in the order. Then we have Robert Elon, Christian Podolicio, Enzo Podolicio, as we've had 6 cars come across the stripe, and we have a car off already. It is the 125 of Joel Janko in the Performance Tech Motorsports machine, has spun it off the racing surface. He's in the grass, has not made contact with anything, but it's just past start finish, it appears, from our vantage point here. We can see a limited amount of the track, but we have TV monitors all the way around the circuit. And as you can see, we have the 125 car of Janko mired in the grass somewhere. He is one of the Masters class competitors in the L1 category. Janko currently is 5th in the Masters points in that number 25 car, 12 points behind Don Yount in the 28, who is 4th in the points so far. As we watch the cars come at speed back into our view, following on the camera the number 20 car of Matt McMurray, who is currently the fastest car. And it looks like Janko's been able to get that car refired and will rejoin as he pulls out right in front of one of the 8-Star Motorsports machines. You can tell by that brilliant yellow livery, or orange livery, excuse me, but the 20 car of Matt McMurray onto the front straightaway, and we'll see how his second lap looks. As so far 11, now 12 cars have turned a time here in this session. Now 13 as the last of the field comes by. 14 cars now have turned a time. 2 laps in the books for Matthew McMurray. He stays on the provisional pole with a 146.720. Andrew Novich would start alongside him in the 61 car at a 147.014. The series points leader, Mikhail Goikhberg, now goes to the top as he comes across to would be the first to complete his 3rd lap. And just as I say that, Novich and McMurray both go faster. So now Andrew Novich is your provisional pole sitter as we still have 14 minutes to go in this qualifying session. Novich in the 61 car, racing out of Novato, California for Comparate Motorsports, has the pace on the field at the moment, a 146.185. Matt McMurray second by 42 one-thousandths of a second, a 146.227 for McMurray. As Matt McMurray out of Phoenix, Arizona in the JDC Motorsports machine. The series points leader, Mikhail Goikhberg, is another 0.3 of a second back in 3rd in that number 10 car out of North Vancouver, Canada, another of the JDC Motorsports entries. His time, a 146.491. Robert Elon in the number 9 is currently 4th. Christian Podolicio in the 2 car for 8-Star Motorsports is 5th. 6th goes to his dad, Enzo Podolicio. He is the lead Masters competitor at the moment in that number 4 car in the 6th position. His best time, a 148.529. Don Yount in the 28 car, 2nd among the Masters drivers right now. Michael Klemecki in the 31 is 3rd among the Masters drivers in L1. In L2, it is the 22 car, and of course that is Brian Alder. Timing and scoring is a little confused. They still have the 22 car names up here from the GT Daytona practice session that just concluded, because I don't believe Lee Keene is driving one of these lights cars here this weekend. But nonetheless, he is the leader of the L2 cars in the 22. That's Brian Alder. He is the series points leader out of Marysville, Ohio, in the Bar 1 Motorsports Top 1 oil machine. Second in L2 is the number 62 of Todd Slusher out of Las Vegas, Nevada. He's the only Masters class driver in the L2 class sponsored by One Motorsports. Third is John Salmon, as we mentioned, on debut this weekend, local driver from Lynchburg, Virginia, in the number 46 car. As we turn our attention back to the front of the field, as the leaders are now completing their 4th timed lap, it is Matt McMurray atop the order in the number 20 car. So Matt McMurray from Phoenix, Arizona, sets the pace, a 1:46.039. That is not quite the fastest time we've seen of the weekend. In the first practice session yesterday, Mikhail Goekberg turned a 1:46.016. So Matt McMurray nearly at the same price, but same pace, should we say, but Andrew Novich, who is 3rd in the points coming into this round, 2nd on the road in this session in that 61 car, only 12 1/1000ths of a second back. Jim Martin is back after his victory circle ceremonies. By the way, you got a chance to hear the tail end of those ceremonies as we came on the live stream just as you were finishing up. So Jim Martin was doing the victory circle ceremonies for our Maserati Trofeo event that goes on here. As we've got a spinner, it looks like it's the 61 car of Andrew Novich, who is currently 2nd, has looped it, but has gotten the car back underway. And I think that is...
down the Oak Tree.
Yeah, down the Oak Tree. So he's making his way up the back straightaway. We're getting a replay of that, as you can see on your screen here. Just carried a little too much speed into that turn. And, you know, we've had a lot of drivers, Jim, tell us that now that the Oak Tree is gone, unfortunately, you know, it really changes the approach to the corner. They used it as kind of a landmark, and now it looks different, and we've had a lot of drivers missing their braking points coming into that turn.
It's almost as if somebody's gone from well, perhaps driving a great big SUV their entire lives, and then finding themselves in a compact car. Like the whole sight line is different than it was before. There's really not a big change, but it's enough of a change that you notice every time you drive by it. And if you line everything you do up with a tree that suddenly disappears, it's going to mess up your corner.
Exactly right. So we're following Andrew Novich as he comes back up to speed after that brief off-course excursion. As you can see, he did not contact anything. He is still 2nd on the road, but Matt McMurray has extended his lead now and has the fast time of the weekend. The first team into the 145s, 1:45.930 for the driver of the number 20 JDC Motorsports entry. Andrew Novich going to be doing his best to catch up, about a 1/10 of a second back. Another 4/10 back is the points leader, Mikhail Goekberg, looking for a good finish here this weekend to perhaps clinch his 2nd consecutive championship. Christian Podolicio in the 2 is still in the 4th spot. Robert Alon now moves up into 5th, moving Enzo Podolicio back into the 6th spot. Enzo is the lead Masters driver. Don Yount in the 28 is 2nd among the Masters. John Falb, who is the points leader in the Masters, the L1 Masters, he has a 17-point advantage over Craig Dewerson, who is not here this weekend. So John Falb also in a position to perhaps clinch the Masters Championship here this weekend.
Like all other forms with the Tudor United Sports Car Championship Series, the people that you know, make sure that these cars are all to spec. Everybody has the same vehicle. Basically, nobody has an unfair advantage. Still doing a wonderful job in this series, like everything else that we've seen here at Virginia International Raceway over the course of the race weekend. Extremely close as far as qualifying times. We've got the top 5 cars separated by 1.1 seconds, and only a 1/10 of a second that separates the top 2 right now. Mikhail Goekberg, who's the current points leader, he's only half a second back, and the 2 kids in front of him still doing a wonderful job. Whether or not Mikhail can make any kind of a dent and put his car in the front row is still open to question.
Daryl Schaff out of Reading, Pennsylvania, one of our Masters class competitors, is getting some camera time now for his Comprent Motorsports RAACE team. It's that Ilan, as we've got one of the 8-star cars having spun. I'm trying to get the number here from my vantage point. I'm not sure if that is... it's the 65 car, which would be Lamont Harris in the 8-star car.
Boy, and he's going to get collected unless he can move.
Yeah.
That's an awful place. That's literally turn number 5 or 6 in the race course. I believe he's finally got it underway, and thank goodness, because he spun the car around to get it pointed in the right direction, and it stopped, dead stopped, in the middle of the racetrack.
Lamont Harris currently shown 13th on the qualifying order, 11th in class amongst the L1 machines. So Lamont Harris trying to find a little more speed. He's about 4.5 seconds off the pace right at the moment as he looped it right in front of another car as we're getting that replay. So a good bit of evasive action there. And he has been able to continue, however. Matt McMurray still the man on the provisional pole, a 1:45.930, easily the fastest lap of the weekend. Andrew Novich, who had a little off-course excursion of his own in the 61, still provisionally outside of row 1. Mikhail Goekberg, the points leader in row 2 with Robert Elon, Christian Podolicio, and Enzo Podolicio, father and son, on row 3 provisionally right now.
And I'm not sure. I'm not sure who's going to have to buy dessert today, because it looks like Christian's beaten Dad, which has not been the case. Actually, Enzo's been a little bit quicker through most of the weekend. But hey, push is coming to shove. This is qualifying time now. Serious business, and it looks like the kid's pretty quick.
Exactly. We're following our leader right now, the 20 car around the track, as Matthew McMurray looking for even more speed. His last lap was a 1:47.3, a couple seconds off his quickest time, as he's just maybe cooling the tires and, you know, running into a little traffic, actually. 15 cars out on the track, and you would think that with 15 cars spread out around this 3.4-mile circuit that there'd be no traffic in qualifying, but they just seem to attract each other, almost like magnets. So Matt McMurray looking for a way around the two cars in front of him right now. And one of them is the 61 car that we just talked about, Andrew Novich, who is second. So Matt McMurray and Andrew Novich are 1 and 2 on the road, and just the inverse of that on the track right now, as they are working their way onto the front straightaway here through the hog pen turn.
Now, of course, there's a lot of, there's downforce. These are small versions of prototype cars. There's downforce, there's aerodynamic advantages, but these are not big motored cars. 2-liter engines, and which is the better advantage to have? Do you want to follow somebody for the tow down the straightaway, because knowing that you're going to have to tow down the straightaway, you're going to lose some downforce because he's punching a hole for you in the air.
Exactly, and we'll see that during the race coming up later today, because these cars will be out with the prototype challenge cars, and they have two very distinct strengths. The prototype challenge cars significantly heavier, almost twice as heavy as these cars, but with twice the horsepower. So they make a little more downforce, so they've got a little more drag. They can brake earlier. So the ebb and the flow of the battle between these two will be interesting to see as we follow the 61 car as it approaches the stripe. We'll see if Andrew Novich can steal that provisional pole away from Matt McMurray. McMurray right in his wheel tracks as they both come across the stripe. No improvement as they were stuck behind that slower car. And so now Mikhail Goikhberg turns in a quick lap and splits those two combatants. Goikhberg, the series points leader, moves up to the outside of row number 1. A 1:45.934, 4/1000ths of a second separates him from Matt McMurray.
Oh.
Those two JDC Motorsports teammates are going after this pole.
Oh, that's gonna sting if it ends this way. There's literally 5 minutes exactly left in this session. Mikhail Goikhberg, 0.004 of a second. Looked like I shouldn't have taken that breath before I got into the last corner, before I stepped on the gas pedal again, because that's all it would take to make that kind of a change.
The yellow over blue number 22 that we're following on camera right now is Brian Alder from Marysville, Ohio. He is the points leader in the L2 category. The L2 cars not quite as quick, little less horsepower, basically the same chassis, but the performance envelope is a little bit down on the L1 cars. And Alder currently is vying for the pole in that position. He is second to Todd Slusher right now. They are 9th and 10th overall, and they would start on the 5th row. Again, I think the L2 cars will be gridded behind the L1s, but nonetheless, Slusher and Alder separated by just about 0.7 of a second. So Brian Alder, the series points leader, looking for maybe a little more pace in this qualifying run to see if he can put his car on the pole and extend his points lead, or extend his opportunity perhaps to clinch the points championship, as both he and Mikhail Goikhberg are potentially in a position to do so here this weekend. Alder with a 78-point advantage over Jerome Mee, and Mee is not competing here this weekend, so Alder, unless disaster befalls that car, is most likely on his way to a championship in L2.
As far as the L1, L2 class cars, very similar in appearance automobiles. The real difference is behind the driver. 2-liter engines, actually massaged motors, massaged Mazda power plants make about 240 horsepower. The 2-liter engines in the L1 cars. The L2 class cars, a little bit more affordable, a little more production-based. The 2.3-liter Mazda engines don't make quite as much horsepower, but on the other hand, they're a little bit easier, a little less expensive to put on a racetrack. And either way, it gives everybody the opportunity to drive on some of the best tracks in the world and get a little bit more experience, and who knows, move up in their own class, eventually move up in the series, and where the driving career path will end, well, it's entirely up to the person behind the wheel.
Andrew Novich on the road now, and he's got the number 20 of our provisional pole sitter, Matthew McMurray, behind him, as we see a car taking a little agricultural racing. filling the front grill with grass clippings, I would guess, as they make it back on track. That is the 10 of Mikhail Goikhberg. So Goikhberg really pushing it to try to steal the pole away from his teammate. And Matt McMurray has extended his lead, a 1:45.824 now for the flying number 20. So he opens up a 1/10 of a second lead over his teammate, the points leader, the number 10 of Goikhberg. We're following him around the track right now to see if he can find that extra 1/10 of a second.
Wow, that was he found a 94 1,000ths of a second. That's oh boy, that's the toughest mathematics I'm going to be capable of all weekend long.
Here comes Goikhberg down the back straightaway as he heads into the roller coaster. I'm still getting my bearings here at VIR, finding which turns are which, because this is such a beautiful track and there is so much grassy runoff. There aren't many landmarks for us poor folks that have only come here once. And
then the oak tree disappeared and made it even worse.
Exactly right. But onto the front straightaway comes our points leader. I'm guessing with that little trip into the grass, this will not be his fastest lap, as he'll come across the stripe here. Yes, a 1:46.6. So he's going to see if he can find that extra 1/10 of a second to steal the pole away from his teammate. This may be the lap. 1 minute and 34 seconds left. In fact, this will be his last lap, as he just came across the stripe. He'll see the checkers next time by.
Yeah, watching him go through turns 1, 2, and 3. Actually, just exiting 3 and crossing in front of the crowd in front of the Pagoda Restaurant now. That number 10 machine actually threw turn number 1 hard on the brakes, and the car was a little squirrely, like he's really pressing hard.
And we're following Andrew Novich right now, who's currently third. He's about 2/10 of a second off the pole and about a 1/10 of a second off a front row start. So this will be Novich's last lap as well, as he is pushing it through the climbing S's down into Oak Tree and onto the back straightaway with 1 minute remaining. Can Andrew Novich move up a couple of spots onto the front row?
A minute to go, and quite literally, this is the lap that will make the difference. We got the top 3 cars separated by 22/100ths of a second.
Down the long hilly straightaway here as he crests the hill and heads down the hill toward what they affectionately call the roller coaster, which feeds into the hog pen. Such colorful names of these turns. I absolutely love it. And that'll take them onto the start-finish straightaway, and we'll keep an eye on the monitors as Andrew Novich trying to move up onto the front row, perhaps steal the pole from one of the JDC Motorsports teammates. Here he comes onto the front straightaway past the pit entrance. He'll be flashing by our commentary position here momentarily, as you can hear that Mazda engine come roaring by, and let's see what he does. He takes the top spot. Andrew Novich, the provisional pole sitter, a 1:45.678, but right behind him is Mikhail Goikhberg, I believe. Here comes Goikhberg to the stripe. Can he retake the pole as the checkered flag comes out? Goikhberg across the stripe. Does he move up? He does not. Andrew Novich at the moment has the pole. Can Matthew McMurray come around and better that? Here comes one of the 8-star machines. We'll see if there's any change there. Christian Podolicio and his dad currently 5th and 6th. They would be on row 3. But at the moment, it is looking that Andrew Novich may be our pole sitter. A 1:45.678, the fastest lap of the weekend. Let's see, we've got a couple other cars still out on track. Their timed laps, of course, will be scored. So we'll see if anybody else is on it. Novich clearly off the pace, as he's going to be content with that lap as he lets a couple of the other cars by, including the 31 machine of Michael Klemecki. So Andrew Novich appears to have the pole for the Lights 1 race coming up a little later today. There'll be 2 races, the Prototype Challenge drivers and the Prototype Lights drivers. We were talking yesterday with Ryan about how this is such a great addition to the whole Tudor Championship menu, because it's really the first ladder series, the first sort of entry-level series for the prototype drivers. The open wheelers have had a ladder series for a long time, but now the prototype drivers have an opportunity to step up from this class, perhaps into Prototype Challenge, and eventually into the big prototypes. And Andrew Novich is sending out notice that he's going to be somebody to be reckoned with here. He's 3rd in the points, and maybe he's going to spoil Mikhail Goikhberg's early coronation here. Goikhberg was thinking that he might have what it takes to clinch the championship, and Novich is saying, not so fast, my friend. Frankly, with 4 rounds remaining, 2 here at VIR and then 2 upcoming during Petit Le Mans at Road America, Novich will certainly have the opportunity. There are 7 drivers who are still mathematically in the hunt, and Novich is 3rd. He is only 4 points back of Christian Podolicio. So Novich certainly putting down notice that at least at here at VIR, he's going to be somebody to be reckoned with.
This is indeed it's interesting. You mentioned before the ladder series idea, the fact that if you want to drive drive prototype cars. You know, there's obviously we've seen several people make some pretty startling careers driving prototype cars in the 24 Hours of Le Mans, for example, which is been kind of the benchmark for Petit Le Mans, Road Atlanta coming up in a month's time, the 24 in Daytona. But as far as getting into these cars, getting involved with this kind of motor racing, there has never been a ladder system, and this is an ideal place to show off the prototype lights the Tudor United Sports Car Challenge has when they run side by side with the prototype challenge cars, more or less a spec racer prototype. They're all Orica chassis, Chevy motors, relatively inexpensive, but obviously prototype cars. And the even more ideal fitting piece of this, here at Virginia International Raceway, they build a car that is an ideal stepping stone to get into prototype lights. They've got an Ariel Adams Spec Racer Series, open wheel cars, basically Honda production power plants, relatively inexpensive. You could start out literally at Virginia International Raceway with the karting track, a karting series, go from that into a full-size automobile, the Ariel Atom, go from that into a prototype light. If you want to, go from that into prototype challenge, and who knows where you'll be. You may end up at the top step of a podium at the 24 Hours of Daytona. You never can tell. But there is a ladder if you want to drive prototype sports cars now. And if you want to find out more, actually, VIR might not be a terrible place to stop.
Exactly. We are about ready to kick off the second half of this qualifying session, and this is for our prototype challenge drivers, as they will be taking the track for a 15-minute qualifying session, and we can see many of them exiting their garage areas and coming down to queue up on the pit lane. As we look at the times, we only have 10 prototype challenge cars here this weekend, and so far in the 2 practice sessions, only 9 of them have turned times. Quickest has been the team that is leading the points right now, and that is the 54 car of John Bennett and Colin Brown, both from Charlotte, North Carolina, in the Core Autosport Orica. And of course, these prototype challenge cars powered by the big 6.3-liter Chevrolet power plant, so they're all identical. And they have led both of the sessions so far. Their fastest time was turned in the second practice session, a 1:40.977. So again, as you can see, the prototype lights cars are about 5 seconds slower in their lap time, as I expect that we will see lap times in the low 140s from these cars as they come out to qualify in just a couple minutes' time. The second quickest in the practice so far was turned by the number 08 car. That is one of the RSR Racing Automax USA sponsored machines. Alex Tagliani and Chris Cumming handling the driving chores this weekend. They were about half a second off the Bennett Braun number 54 on the second practice session yesterday. Third quickest in the second practice was the 52 car of Gunnar Jeanette and Frankie Montecalvo. Gunnar Jeanette out of West Palm Beach, Florida. Frankie Montecalvo out of Highlands, New Jersey, as they set the third fastest time. Fourth fastest time and second quickest in the first practice session was the number 25 8-star motorsports machine of Luis Diaz and Sean Rayhall. Luis Diaz, of course, makes his home in Mexico City. Sean Rayhall out of Winston, Georgia, so a local driver certainly. In the top 5 in yesterday's practice was the number 38 car. That is David Ostella out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and James French, just south of there from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, in the Performance Tech Motorsports machine. As we look at the series points coming into this, the Core Autosport team has had really the I won't say a dream season, because they have not clinched the championship quite yet, but they have certainly had 4 wins, 5 podium finishes, 3 pole positions, certainly more wins than anyone else. The Starworks number 8 with Marco Schultes and Ringer van der Zande has had 2 wins. The RSR Racing number 08 of Chris Cumming and Alex Tagliani has a win as well. But the lion's share have been taken by the 54 Core Autosport team, as they won right out of the box at Daytona and Sebring, and then again at Kansas and Watkins Glen. As we wait for the prototype challenge drivers to take the track, they're queuing up here on the pit lane and are out on track as we speak. So we'll keep an eye on the timing charts as they come around to complete their first flying laps. Second in the points, as we mentioned, is the 25 8-star motorsports machine of Luis Diaz and Sean Rayhall. The Starworks number 8 of Marco Schultes and Ringer van der Zande. Then we've got the PR1 Mathiasen Motorsports number 52 of Calvo. Then the RSR number 08 of Chris Cumming and Alex Tagliani, who are were second on the road yesterday. Performance Tech Motorsports number 38 of David Ostella and James French, sixth in the points. JDC Miller Motorsports number 85 of Chris Miller is currently running in seventh in the points. And then the Star Works number 7 from Martin Fuentes and John Martin as the first of our drivers comes across the stripe, and it is the 8-star number 25 as they are now on the clock after their sighting lap. The RSR number 09, who is unlike their teammates in the 08 car, have had kind of an unlucky season. 3 podium finishes so far, but some bad luck at Daytona right out of the box. Came back strong at Sebring to set the pole and finish on the podium, and then on the podium again in the next race at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. Kansas and Watkins Glen not quite as good, on the podium again at Indy. And from the pole at Road America, and then literally taken out in the first lap in somebody else's accident as a car spun in front of them, and they were collected up at Canada Corner, and that put paid to their day. So hopefully the RSR team got that car rebuilt, and we'll see how they do as they're taking it around the track. And we are following that 09 car of Duncan Indy and Bruno Junqueira right now as they come across the stripe. We're still waiting for the first of our drivers to make their way, and the late great Ryan Eversley is here. As Ryan, the driver of the number 75 Compass 360 Racing Honda Civic, who was very saddened to see yesterday that the qualifying session for his class was abandoned because of the wet track, because Ryan set the fastest time of the weekend in that car, but unfortunately they're about 10th in the points, so you're a little further deeper in the field than you'd like to be. Welcome, Ryan. Glad
Hey,
to be
thanks,
with us.
guys. I'll agree with the late part. I don't know about the great part. But, yeah, we were a little bit bummed on the qualifying. Because, you know, if they feel like we need to be on rain tires and they don't want us to go out and try to qualify in a rain wet to dry session, because then that could create a bit of an unfair advantage to the team that gets the pit stop done right in the 15-minute window. So I totally understand the rule, but yeah, we would have liked to have gone for a time yesterday, because Kyle Gimple's put us in the top 5 the last 4 times that we've qualified. So we're looking forward to that, but top 10's not bad. You know, that's not a bad place to start at all.
Absolutely, and in a race that's 2.5 hours long, you'll have some time to work your way toward the front. Kyle give you a good car. He'll take the first stint, I assume. Is that, of course, you have the choice.
Yeah, does that change that?
Yeah.
You know, we could, but you have to nominate a driver a couple hours before qualifying generally. And our deal's been Kyle's the starting driver this year, and next year he'll be the finishing driver in one of the Compass cars. So we're going to stick to our plan and routine. We have great pit stops and driver changes, and if we start swapping that right now, it would throw the rhythm off.
Check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check.
Trying it if we needed to, but we feel like this weekend we're going to stick to our guns. It's a great opportunity for us to get a podium, so no point in changing something.
It ain't busted. We don't need to fix it.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
The first of the prototype challenge cars across the stripe, as we now have some times. It is the 25 of Sean Rayhall in the 8-star Motorsports machine, who has set the pace here. In
Check.
the
1, 2, 3, 4. Check.
So we've still got some pace to come. Frankie Montecalvo in the number 52 second. John Bennett in the series points lead.
1, 2, 3, 4. Check.
Chris Miller is fourth in the early going. Again, just one timed lap for each of these cars. James French in the 38. Then Chris Cumming pops up into the second spot. So the RSR number 08 that he shares with Alex Tagliani now takes over the second position, but it's still early days. We've got another 4 or 5 seconds. They're running basically at the same pace that the lights cars were running at the end of their qualifying session. We know there's 4 or 5 seconds left in these cars as we follow Sean Rayhall around the track right now as he is down into the hog bend corner and onto the front straightaway to complete his second flying lap. We'll see if Sean Rayhall can pick up a little pace. I'm guessing that he will. And 143.367, kind of sneaking up on it. Ryan, would you guess that these prototype challenge cars take a little longer to get the tires up to temperature?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The Continentals are a little bit harder to compound than what you usually want to see for a qualifying tire, but they're great for the long haul, and that's kind of the design basis. So they're going to take about 3 laps. I think 4 laps will be like the big number that we'll see pop up on the board. And also the fuel load's going to burn down over this 15 minutes. You know, you put in a low fuel load as it is anyway, but in the last 2-3 laps when it's really lightweight, the whole goal is that you run out of gas and you come across the checkered flag at the end of the
Check.
because fuel load, fuel is weight, and when you have these cars that are already super lightweight, they're very sensitive to how much fuel they carry. So we'll see the lap times. I think the last 2 or 3 laps.
Check.
We're watching the 08 of Chris Cumming as he is currently 4th in the order as he bends his way through and makes his way up through the roller coaster, I guess, down into he's actually at the top of the climbing S's. I'm sorry, I was telling Jim, and this is my first visit to road goodness gracious, I don't even know where I am. What day is this? It's Virginia International Raceway, and from the camera views, this track looks so similar because it's got beautiful grassy runoffs everywhere, and I'm still trying to get my bearings when I look at the camera view as to where the cars are on the track.
And there's fewer trees than there were before. It's Saturday. This must be Virginia.
Exactly.
And actually, we're
And there is a Santa Claus, but carry on.
yeah. I really hope. As far as we can tell, like we're waxing poetic about ladder series and how you can get involved with go-karts and aerial atoms and prototype lights and into prototype challenge cars, and who knows where it's going to go. Frankie Montecalvo, on the other hand, took a couple driving schools and had driven all sorts of sedans and had a little bit of racing experience and was a crew guy for one of these prototype challenge cars a couple of years ago. And they basically said, well, everybody else is kind of busy and has their hands full. You want to do a couple laps in the car, and when he got out, they said, don't go too far and keep your driving suit handy because we got a place for you. And suddenly Frankie Montecalvo basically discovered that he'd become a professional race driver as well as a tire hauler for a race team.
And right at the moment, if this qualifying session were to end, which it's not, we're only halfway through, Frankie would be on the front row in that number 52 car. His best lap, a 1:43.206. But look at Sean Rayhall, a 1:41.981. Again, we're still about a second off the quickest times we've seen in practice. So there is more to come from that number 25 machine, but he is flying right now. The driver out of Winston, Georgia, I'm sure has more than a couple laps around this track.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean's been doing a great job all year in that PC class. In fact, for the silver-rated driver, he's definitely the fastest one of those guys out here on a regular basis. However, Frankie Montecalvo looks like he's on a real flyer coming through the uphill S's. Doubt he's going to let him get away that easy. Good to see Duncan Endy get the time up on the board. You know, he's only about 3/10 behind Frankie there, and I'm sure he wants to get up there and stink up the show a little bit.
Yeah, and of course they had to rebuild that car after that unfortunate shunt up in Road America that looked like it did some pretty significant damage. So, the Rocket Sports crew did a great job of getting that car back underway. And Duncan Endy and his teammate Chris Cumming currently lying third and fourth. They would start side by side on row 2 if it continues. But at the moment, at least, Sean Rayhall showing the way with 6 minutes remaining in this brief 15-minute qualifying session.
Yesterday I spoke with Duncan at the end of the day, and we had ventured to guess in the first session that they might have been dealing with some problems from the crash we saw at Road America, and we were right. He was explaining to me they had a very leaky steering column with the power steering fluid. So not something that's mandatory, but you don't want all that fluid dropping on your toes, on your pedals when you're driving around at speeds. They could probably do it without the power steering in these cars, and I think a lot of guys wouldn't mind that just because you give it a little bit more of a feel. But it is one of those things you can't be driving around up there with that. That was a problem they had, so they missed that session. So good to see Duncan only a handful of tenths off of the two guys in front of him who had both sessions to work on their car. They're obviously playing a little bit of catch up.
We're following John Bennett around the track in the series points leading number 54 for Core Autosport. He currently lies fifth inside of row 3 provisionally. His last lap was not quite his best. He turned a 1:44.4 a lap ago. This lap was a little bit off that pace, so perhaps he's maybe cooling the tires a little bit, just looking for a flyer here in the waning moments of this qualifying session.
Yeah, you never know. He also might have caught up a little bit of traffic there.
Sure.
And he knows the lap's not going to be worth it, so you might as well just kind of back off, get your bearings about you, get yourself a clear run so you don't run up in the back of that guy you already caught, or maybe the next guy up the road.
You would think with only 8 cars on track, traffic would not be an issue, but as Jim and I were discussing in the lights thing, they're like magnets. They attract each other.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, you always end up finding somebody, and it's so funny. We were at one of the longest tracks in the series, and on our live stream feed, we can see that there's a bunch of cars running about 3-4 seconds apart from one another. As looks like Mirko Schulteis just got his best lap on the board there, rounding out the top 9.
We're following the 85 of Chris Miller as he makes his way under the bridge as he heads up the climbing S's. Beautiful part of this racetrack.
Yeah, definitely one of the staples of the whole facility. It's one of those places we talk about all year long when you say we're getting a VIR suit. Man, I can't wait to do those uphill S's.
Yeah.
Getting to do it in a car with this much downforce and big tires and awesome brakes for the top of it is just one of the best ways to go around this racetrack.
It's like driving it's like driving a roller coaster that you can steer.
Yeah, exactly. You're in control, and I think that's
you're
honestly
in charge.
that's why roller coasters aren't that much fun to me, because I don't get to hit the brakes, I don't get to hit the gas.
Frankie Montecalvo burning his way around the track here. We'll see as he gets a little squirrely as he jumps on the brakes there. We'll see if Frankie can find that extra second and a tenth that he's going to need to catch up to Sean Rayhall.
Yeah, Sean's last lap was his best lap again, 41.808, so he just lowered it a tiny bit. So he's still chipping away, probably just took a lap or two to kind of cool things off. Might have had a little bit of a moment and said, okay, I need to settle down, get back to my bearings. But yeah, chipping away at his best. Meanwhile, Frankie's last lap was only, I think, 500ths off of his best lap. So everybody's kind of still getting there. Duncan Eddy just did his best lap, 43.0. So again, the battle between Frankie and Duncan's lighting up here. They're only a 10th apart, which is awesome.
3 minutes left, which means at this rate, about 2 laps is all that we're going to have for these drivers as the 09 car of Duncan Eddy across the stripe. And he improves to second. He is on the front row provisionally with the number 09 RSR Racing machine. A 1:42.724, 9/10 of a second off Sean Rayhall's time. As you said, Ryan, Sean has just really been the class in this field here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been showing everybody this year that I think he's a guy that's going to be finishing races for a long time to come in the PC class. And unfortunately, to be able to drive a guy like Luis Diaz, who has as much experience as he does, and he can still learn from him, even though he's already there on pace. Sometimes being fast isn't really the biggest problem, or the biggest factor. It's having a good setup for the long race, being able to work with your crew properly, and Luis can obviously help him with that to nurture his career.
It seems like there's lots of drivers, and perhaps not a majority by any stretch, but as they're coming up as far as their racing career, as often as not, they've got the basic skill. They know what needs to be done. They can be fast in qualifying, but when they get out on a racetrack and there's traffic and there's lots of other things to be concerned about, it's a lot for them to deal with. It takes a veteran to almost pat them on the back from time to time and go, "You're doing okay. Try doing this," and just little hints along the way, and that's. It's unobtainable in a lot of teams that don't have that kind of experience with a Luis Diaz.
We were following Frankie Montecalvo around the track. Just missed his best time. He's just a couple hundredths of a second off his very best lap, so he stays for the moment in 4th. But I think he got across the stripe in time that he'll get 2 more laps. We're following the 54 of John Bennett around right now to see if he can improve. He's back in the 3rd row, currently inside in that number 54 machine. James French will start alongside him. Now Chris Miller moves up a spot to take over that outside of row 3 position in the 85 car for JDC Miller Motorsports. As we're in the coming up on the closing minute of this session.
Yeah, really important to point out now that Chris Cummings actually jumped Frankie Montecalvo, but his car in P3 there right behind his Rocket Sports teammate Duncan Eddy. So what I'm also looking at that I really like, these guys are doing their best laps on every lap. You know, they're getting more and more fuel out of the car. They know the time's winding down. And what's great to see is that both RSR cars having some trouble, you know, the last few events are right there, nose to tail. It shows the crew's really got the cars back together. But also, these guys are doing laps over and over on lap 8, lap 7 that are within hundreds of their laps. And they're all very close together. So the on-track product should be awesome come race time this afternoon.
And Sean Rayhall just keeps moving the rabbit a little further down the road. A 1:41.447 on his last lap is almost a second clear of the field, and that's a bunch. Duncan Eddy, the best of the rest at the moment as we're in the waning moments here. 23 seconds left on the clock, and just about everybody is out there on a hot lap.
He's got 1.1 seconds on the balance of the field. The second fastest Duncan Eddy. From Duncan Eddy back to the 7th place car, the next 6 cars are covered by another 1.1 seconds. That's an incredible gap that Sean Rayhall's built up.
We're seeing Duncan now as he's working his way into the roller coaster. We'll see as the checkered flag comes out. Obviously, the lap in progress will be scored. So can Duncan Eddy find that second? Some might doubt it. That's a whole bunch to make up on the last lap, but he'll make a liar out of me. Watch as he comes to the stripe.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a little bit of time, but that's a big number from Sean that he put up there.
Yeah, that's a lot to try to find all at once. Tenths of a second from time to time, like that. That's within the realm of possibility. 1.1. Wow, that's a lot.
So Sean Rayhall looking like the pole sitter, but we're waiting for the last of the laps to come. Duncan Eddy provisionally outside of row 1. Chris Cumming in row 2 with Frankie Montecalvo. John Bennett and Chris Miller in row 3. James French and Martin Fuentes. We haven't mentioned Martin's name yet today. And the number 7, the Star Wars Motorsport Under Armour machine. He would be outside of row 4. Mirko Schultes, a little unusually back at the back of the field, as he makes a liar out of me and moves up 1 spot on his final lap as he moves Martin Fuentes back to the 9th position. 9th and final position of this qualifying order, and I don't think there's anybody else on a hot lap as the 25 car of Sean Rayhall, victorious in this qualifying session, makes his way down the pit lane.
Looks like there's one guy left who's hoping he can put it back on the front row as Frankie Montecalvo brings that number 52 Camp Boggy Creek across the line. Can he do it?
Waiting on the clock, and he moves
He
up
does.
to second. Front
P2.
row.
Nice job. Puts
Frankie.
it back on the front row, redeems his guys from that last few laps where he's a little bit off of his pace, but 42.5 right there at the end, just squeaks ahead of Duncan Endy and Chris Cumming, rather, to make a really tight top 5 there.
Yeah.
Looks like we're going to have one more Star Wars car coming to the line here. Couldn't see which one it was, but yeah, he should be our last guy across here.
There they come across the stripe. We'll see if there's any change. But right now, Montecalvo, Indy, and Cumming separated by, let's see, that's about 7/100ths of a second. You know, the time that Sean Rayhall put in is unassailable, I think, in this session. But Montecalvo will start alongside him provisionally. Again, any results I give you are provisional pending review by the stewards of the meet. But Sean Rayhall, your pole sitter in Prototype Challenge. Frankie Montecalvo in second. The Rocket Sports teammates, Duncan Endy and Chris Cumming, will occupy row 2. Row 3 to John Bennett driving the points leading, number 54. Chris Miller in the 85 car will start next to him. James French and Mirko Schulteis in the number 8 car will be in row number 4, and alone in row 5, Martin Fuentes in the number 7 for Star Works Motorsport. That's the provisional grid for Prototype Challenge. As we will work our way through the rest of the day, we'll be back with you on the live stream momentarily, as next on the order will be qualifying for the Lamborghini Blancpain Super Trofeo coming up in just a few minutes. I'm John Phippen, Jim Martin, Ryan Eversley. Thanks for being with us.